Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333, and welcome back to the new campaign trail. Now, last time we were here together, we hopped into the world of Icarus, a phenomenal mod. If you haven't checked out that video, do check it out and play the mod. We hopped in as General Wesley Clark and led America through a transformative period of time, which also included transforming the state of the Russian army into a fine powder as they tried to invade the great country of Georgia. Now, it's been a little bit of a time, and so I wanted to come back with a bang. And so I would like to welcome you all to the first episode of McGovern. I've wanted to do some more themed months for a while, give some love to some mods that otherwise probably wouldn't. And I figured, who better to start with than the failed presidential candidate from South Dakota, George Stanley McGovern. There are probably better places to start. I don't even know if his middle name is Stanley. I could have just made that up. I don't even know if any of you would have caught that if I didn't say that. But, McGovern's a pretty interesting figure to me, and I wanted to check out some of the mods going on. And in order to start off this little series, I want to hop back into 1972 McGoverning. Now, there are a couple 1972 scenarios. Recently relaunched, the Campaign Trail website has a Brian-esque mod made, kind of like the old school new Campaign Trail, or Campaign Trail mods from Dan Bryan. That's not an original scenario. I don't know if there's a way you can even win that one, honestly. There is also a custom 1972 mod, which has 40 questions, and I think that it's also very difficult for you to win, at least on normal difficulty. I want to hop into this one, which is slightly easier. It might still be a bit of an uphill battle to win, but it might be worth, it's going to be a little easier to hop in. This is based off a alternate history story chronicalizing a scenario where George McGovern actually did become president of the United States. Because if you look at how he did in real life, it wasn't particularly close. So I want to go ahead and hop in and give this mod some attention and see if we can't start some McGoverning. With the war in Vietnam still raging and building unrest at home, it seems the nation hasn't escaped the turmoil of the 60s. George McGovern represents the left and anti-war wing of his party and faces an uphill battle. Richard Nixon is seeking re-election and is well-liked within the Republican Party. George Wallace hopes to retain enough of his white populist base to throw the election to the House of Reps. Each candidate is looking to make a statement as the election's outcome is increasingly uncertain. Well, here he is. George Stanley McGovern. I'm going to look up if that's actually his middle name. I don't know. George McGovern is a senator from South Dakota and is well-liked personally. However, his policies are far to the left of most Democrats today, and he will need to put in a Herculean effort to win over moderates. Despite this, George Wallace's entry into the race, along with Nixon's growing crisis of confidence, has given him the opportunity of a lifetime. It is Stanley, look at that. Excuse me. If the current momentum holds and he plays his card right, McGovern could assemble enough of a coalition to either win the election in the House, or win outright, something that seemed feasible just a couple months prior. Well, there we go. So we have three candidates for Vice President. We have James Carter, who doesn't do anything relevant, particularly. Kind of an obscure figure, surely. Gaylord Nelson, who I'm going to move on before I start laughing at his name, because I have the sense of humor of a teenager. And Philip Hart. The funny TNO reference, even though I'm pretty sure this mod outdates the TNO update by a fair long while. Philip Hart is a senator from Michigan who is not just popular in his state, but has a great reputation among his colleagues, having been termed the conscience of the Senate. A Catholic, his background as a war hero wounded on D-Day, as well as a strong relationship with the UAW, makes Hart a particularly attractive candidate that could help broaden McGovern's coalition. His exemplary integrity could also become crucial if the trust becomes a major focus of the campaign. Well, there we go. Let's hop in, and let's see if we can't win. We have 40 questions ahead of us, folks, so go ahead and buckle in, because we might be here for a bit. So, starting off, it's not looking too hot. We going to win 35 electoral votes. Nixon is looking to win 487. Admittedly, it's going a little bit better than it was in real life at this point in time, but what are you going to do? Well, I know what we're going to do. We're going to win. You have selected Philip Hart as your running mate. What can you say about him that What can you say about him that made you want him on the ticket? Well, Philip Hart is a proud Democrat and will help rally Catholic and Union voters in key areas we need to win. Emphasizing his party credentials is a good move, and you're going to need his help to get major Democrats solidly on your side. Well, despite the efforts on multiple fronts to obstruct the nomination process, the convention has gone through quite smoothly. What will your primary message be as you accept the party's nomination? Well, it is time for this land to become again a witness to the world for what is just and noble in human affairs. It's time to live more with faith and less with fear, with an abiding confidence. Teach us that we are truly brothers and sisters. Your speech struck a good balance of optimism and honesty and has been referred to as the Come Home America speech, after one line repeated throughout it. There we go. You know, it might be turning out okay, I think. We're going to probably start off visiting Missouri. Missouri or California? Let's work on Missouri. Shortly after the Democratic Convention, George Wallace held a press conference where he announced that he was seeking the nomination of the American Independent Party to once again run as a third-party candidate. What is your response? Well, if we're being honest, he's much more of a problem for Nixon than he is for me, and we're better off ignoring him. Let's keep focusing our attacks on Nixon. Maybe we'll have a shot. This is probably the best course. What's that do? He's picking up in Louisiana. Meanwhile, we're starting to pick up a bit in the upper Rust Belt, in Missouri, some of these plain states. We're also finally winning in South Dakota, which is nice. We might even get the lead in New York soon enough. Many Democrats aren't motivated to campaign for you this fall, given how much your rhetoric during the primaries had left a bad taste in their mouth. How will you alleviate them? Well, my main goal is to uphold the standards of the Democratic Party. To do this, I will speak extensively with those who are hesitant about this campaign and convince them that I will alter my rhetoric extensively if that's what it takes to get them on board. Both your own supporters and party insiders are surprised at your readiness to drop some of your policies, but this could be what it takes to get those reluctant Democrats to help you out. There we go. I see California as being the big thorn in our side. Could potentially win Maryland if we put some investment into it. Not so sure, though. Let's visit California off the bat as well. Now that the campaign has been shaken up on all angles, especially after the suspicious firebombing of the Brookings Institute, the Watergate breakings, and entry of Wallace into the race, what will your overall campaign strategy be this fall? Well, we're in this to win, and now that the opportunity has presented itself, I'll do anything to accomplish that goal. If that means dropping some of my more controversial policies, then that's exactly what I'll do. This is highly ambitious, and for victory to be truly possible, be prepared to do anything. Nixon's lead remains difficult to overcome. Well, in broad terms, what is your policy towards the Vietnam War? I advocate for a complete withdrawal of all U.S. military forces, amnesty for those who evaded the draft, and to get our American POWs back home. Come home, America. We're doing pretty well, actually, in the West Coast. Makes me wonder... Might be worth dropping some visits into Maryland. Let's visit Maryland. The AFL-CIO is holding a vote tomorrow over whether to endorse you, Nixon, or nobody for the president. The organization holds sway over labor unions everywhere in this country, and they have chosen to endorse the Democratic presidential candidate in every election since its formation. How do you wish to influence this vote? Well, this endorsement isn't worth as much as people think. My running mate has a great reputation with the rank-and-file union voters. Let's have him campaign for me in union towns all across America. Meaning endorsing Nixon would be an outright disaster, so you're not wrong in that regard, but tossing away the executive's committee importance sends the wrong message. However, you're right in that your running mate could make up for some of that. Oren Staley, president of the National Farmers Organization, has expressed no desire to support either candidate, but it also made statements deriding Agriculture Secretary Earl Butz. Do you wish to capitalize on this? Well, we gotta do the old inspect element, which I haven't done in a very, very long time. Inspect element here. Well, absolutely. I'll speak to Mr. Staley directly. I think you'll find that my policies support farmers far more than any of Butz's do. Surprisingly, Staley was very impressed with you. He stated outright that he won't publicly endorse you, but he also agreed to make comments to the press about how Butz's policies negatively affected the Farm Belt. Well, there we go. You know, things are starting to look up a little bit. Let's see, that's 8 points for mine in Cali, 8 in Missouri, 7 in Maryland. So I'm not so worried about Maryland now. 8, 7. Let's go Missouri. William Loeb III, publisher of the Manchester Union Leader, has sued members of Nixon's re-election campaign who are also linked to Brookingsgate, claiming they forged the infamous Canuck letter. As developments come out about the case, how will you respond? Well, Wallace is attacking him on this hard enough. We should stick with our current approach while still bringing up such revelations in our speech. This approach makes for a good balance. Last year, Senator Ted Kennedy introduced his health insurance plan to the Senate, proposes a universal single-payer system which is financed through payroll taxes. What is your stance on the bill? Well, I fully support this bill. The state of our national healthcare system is a scandal, and Senator Kennedy's plan is just the right way to fix it. You energized Democrats by throwing your weight behind the bill, and coupled with Kennedy releasing a detailed report on the healthcare crisis earlier this summer, you've got the popular pressure on Nixon to do something about it. Well, look at that. We're only 2 points behind in some of these key states, which is nice to see. Coming up in California without even... we are falling a bit behind in Maryland and Missouri, though. I think I'll go to Maryland next. Do you have any comments on the bombing of dikes in North Vietnam? President Nixon denied these were targeted bombings amid a brief controversy generated by Jane Fonda's highly publicized visit to North Vietnam, and a less publicized statement by the General Secretary of the UN condemning these bombings. Well, destroying these dikes would displace an untold amount of civilians and kill thousands upon thousands of people. So this shows more, almost than anything else, how completely unjustifiable this war truly is. We should have never fought in the first place, and all American troops should leave immediately. Trying to turn this specific issue into a referendum on the war hasn't worked out. Bombing the dikes is unpopular, but fewer Americans seem to care much about Vietnam, although it remains a relevant topic. Well, it seems to be helping us a little bit. More war news. Life magazine has published an image of a naked Vietnamese girl screaming for her life after fleeing her school, which had just been bombed by napalm. Her clothes were gone because she had torn them off after they lit on fire. The Pentagon said it was an accidental bombing since the location was South Vietnam. Any thoughts? Let's say anything brave about burning up children who live north of the 17th parallel or who live in Cambodia or Laos. They all feel pain. They're all the same children of God. Those are the kind of conditions we have to recover if we're going to save the soul of this nation. These are inspiring words, and the event depicted in this horrifying photo is indefensible. Let's go to Maryland. In the Senate Select Committee hearing, Nixon aide Alexander Butterfield admitted to the existence of a tape system in the Oval Office. How do you plan to approach this and other emergent Bookingsgate revelations? Well, if Walls as loud as he is, we shouldn't change up our strategy too much. Instead, we can contrast between the integrity of my running mate and Nixon's corruption. Considering the record you do have, this is probably the best move. Oh, look at that. Washington is a little closer than I thought it would be. Well, let's move on. With your poll numbers steady and everyone else mired in uncertainty over the place, as we move into the autumn, what do you want to do to get this campaign to take advantage? Well, I want a slate of television ads blasted across every major network. You can really hammer Nixon for his unpopular stances on key issues like Vietnam, the minimum wage, and his emerging involvement in Bookingsgate. Emphasizing my record of integrity along with that of my running mate will really help. Television ads are always a decent idea, but the effect of these are marginal. Seven, 6 to Maryland. Your wife Eleanor has actively campaigned with you throughout your political career. Which areas do you think she should focus on while she campaigns? Well, Eleanor is a mother first and foremost. Our son Stephen is as old as many of the boys being sent over to die in Vietnam. I think she can really show the effect the war has on American mothers and the thousands of them who will never get to see their sons again. This had the potential to backfire badly, but with few televised addresses set in your own home, Eleanor's knocked this issue out of the park. Well, there we go. Returning to more substantial policy issues, what are your policies on crime in our cities and rising drug use? Well, we need to increase federal financial aid to the cities with the highest crime rates and increase the number of foot patrolmen to crack down this lawlessness. I also think we need to take a look at the kind of advertising we show to our youth, where problems are only ever solved by taking some sort of drug. No matter what you say, Nixon will characterize you as somehow soft on crime. The acid amnesty and abortion label is going to stick for a long time. Still, this is a good step towards combating that. Visit Washington as well. Let's talk a little about your Vietnam policy. What do you think will be the fate of President Thieu and the entire South Vietnamese government should you win in November? Well, the ongoing negotiations are a highly delicate process, which I will refrain from interfering with in any way. These issues will be solved at the bargaining table, not with TV ads or campaign rhetoric. This is a cautious response, which isn't a bad thing. Many are concerned about the broad nature of your economic policies and feel you haven't put much thought into it. Is there anything you would want to do to assuage these concerns? Let's appropriate lots of FDR's rhetoric and seek to win over those populist voters George Wallace appeals to. By opposing big business and appealing to the working man, we can really win over those people who voted for him in the primaries. So this is only marginally effective with that demographic and does little for you nationally. But it's going to be effective enough, dang it. Yeah, we're catching up on the West Coast. I'm not too worried about that. Let's do Maryland next. How frequently do you plan to mention your military service as you campaign this year? Oh, are you kidding me? Let's bring this up all the time. I flew dozens of combat missions in the B-24 bomber over Europe. Nearly died multiple times. I want to emphasize this frequently in ads, but in a biographical sort of way, not as any political response. This has really paid off. You shirked your humble South Dakotan image for a bit of flamboyance, but that's necessary in a political campaign. These vivid ads resonate strongly with the voters. Well, you know, it's looking up. I gotta say. At the Olympic Village in Munich, Palestinian militants took Israeli athletes hostage, leading to a massacre claiming the lives of 14 Israelis. 2 Germans, and the 7 perpetrators. Bad timing for me to say things we're looking up, huh? All world flags are being flown at half-staff, apart from 10 Arab nations who refused. Do you have any comment? This is a tragic event. My thoughts are with the families of the victims at this time and the nation of Israel. I will always remain committed to their safety and oppose the barbaric actions of these terrorists. It's a tad cynical, sure, but using this opportunity to try and redirect the narrative around your stance on Israel is a smart move. Oh, there we go. Only 5 points behind Maryland now. Let's drop a visit to Missouri. The Equal Rights Amendment has recently passed the Senate, is now in the process of being ratified by the states. What points do you want to bring up on the issue? Well, the ERA is a force for good, but there's so much more we can do for American women. We need to ensure Social Security benefits and alimony for widows, job training for older women, protect child custody for divorced mothers. As it turns out, there's a generational divide between the older and younger feminists on these issues. Your statements have done much to appeal to older women, while placating the young feminist movement. How much of the youth vote do you think you can turn out? Well, I know Garrett keeps putting fantastical data in front of me, suggesting we'll win among college-age voters overwhelmingly, but we can't take anything for granted in this campaign. Let's make extensive visits to college campuses and get people like Senator Mike Gravel out campaigning for us. Some of your own staff think you're crazy for this, considering the data your campaign has produced on the subject. But I think that's helped us by and large. Look at that. We're coming up beautifully in Missouri. I think let's go ahead. 6, 6, 5. Let's visit Washington. After meeting with former President Lyndon Johnson at his Texas ranch, Johnson hands you a file containing evidence that Nixon was involved in sabotaging the Paris peace talks in 1968. How will he bring this information to light? Well, this information is sensitive, and we have an obligation to handle it with integrity. Let's announce its existence and how we acquired it, and then hand over the files to the proper authorities and institutions so that this damning evidence gets out the right way. While the initial press conference announcing this does stir the pot some, the revealing of this information in the X-Files stirs it much more so. Not only will this be the focus of the public but in Congress for at least the next week, but a lot of people's trust in Nixon just collapsed. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Oh, that is beautiful right there. New Jersey might be winnable now. I wasn't sure about that, but maybe, just maybe. As the campaign continues, how much do you plan to speak about the various investigations, revelations related to Brookings-Gate, along with other emerging Nixon scandals? Well, let's hit on this a lot. Everything that's come out in the recent months has left us with no choice but to be definitive to drop the recent from our statements characterizing the Nixon administration as the most corrupt in recent history. Ouch. These attacks sting Nixon a little. On top of all the previous revelations, if you press your case correctly, they may even hurt him. Oh, look at that. We're in Maryland. Oh, that's beautiful. Still lagging behind a bit in Washington and North Dakota. We could possibly swing Vermont. I'm not too worried about that, but we could. Let's try New Jersey. Recent polls are revealing that the new barrage of revelations related to the Chenault affair have damaged Nixon's chances of re-election. Where will you campaign in order to take advantage? Where are we struggling? The Northeast. Northeast could be good. Ohio and Iowa we're ahead of. The Northeast is a pretty broad category, and we could use some help in some of these states. We should campaign across the Northeast. There are multiple competitive states in the region, and winning them will be crucial. It's a good strategy, and it's highly important to lock up states like Connecticut and even Maine if you were to win. The media is referring to you as a candidate of acid, amnesty, and abortion. Do you care to comment on this? Oh, this is a spurious claim brought forward by the Nixon administration. I am in no way advocating for these things. This answer deflects the attack, but blaming it on Nixon without proof only further hurts your credibility with voters. Feminists and progressives are now also having doubts about you. Well, shucks. And we just dropped off in New Jersey. Let's focus on the West Coast. I'll do Washington for now. What tone would you like to set with your attacks against Nixon and the Watergate affair? Let's compare him to Hitler. No. We'll campaign on corruption in Washington as a whole, not just Nixon's flaws. There's certainly a lot to get outraged over in Washington at the moment. Do you plan to debate President Nixon's JFK did in 1960 alongside Governor Wallace? Well, there's no way in hell Nixon would ever agree to this anyway. Let's not risk the embarrassment of being turned down or the plans falling apart, and instead pour our resources into television ads. Interesting move. Many of your staffers are convinced you and Wallace would have walloped Nixon in a debate and are angry at your decision to turn it down, but your TV ads actually go over surprisingly well. Yeah, the gap's only growing in New Jersey. I don't know if we have much of a shot there. Let's do Washington again. Welfare remains a hot topic in this year's election. What points do you wish to bring up on the campaign trail? Yeah, that's the name of this game. Well, I promise you that we're going to do whatever is necessary to provide a job for every able-bodied man and woman in this country who wants to work. Those who don't want to work shouldn't be paid anything in the way of public support. That's just common sense. The Council will help finesse the issue of moderates and conservatives while maintaining your progressive bona fides. Many noticed you dropped your $1,000 promise for better or worse. Well, as the campaign heats up, Nixon has started blasting the airwaves with television ads, including one using toy soldiers, planes, and warships to scare voters over your defense policy. How will you respond? Well, we'll play up my military service counterclaims that I'm weak on defense, speak about my connections of Catholics, farmers, unions, and other groups with wavering support. This ad campaign is a moderate success and helps counter Nixon's attacks. There we go. Coming back from New Jersey. It's beautiful. Speaking of Jersey, let's head over that way. There's been recently some violence at Republican events, and many feel this plays right into Nixon's claims of restoring law and order to this country and fears of radicalism. Do you want to condemn any of these protesters? Yes, I do. While I think many of your claims are legitimate, creating a scene in public through violence and destruction of property isn't a good way of going about your goals. But I understand where they're coming from. This helps with your core supporters, but particularly ones who value your anti-war stance above all else, but many feel you're too kind for troublemakers at Nixon's rallies. Well, we're almost over the hump. How do you feel about forced busing? Yeah, no comment. This is maybe for the best, all things considered. Alright, let's go to Jersey. Now that election day is fastly approaching, what do you plan to do to maintain your momentum in this campaign? Well, I think the way the polls are looking recently will help in getting more of the party united behind my campaign. Let's convince people like Richard Daley, John Lindsay, and Marvin Mandel to rally around our ticket, join the usual party leaders. The Democrats are as strong as ever. Based on the recent polling, that may actually be the case. And that screws us in Jersey. Crud. What's your stance on the space program, and what direction would you like to take it? Well, this is one of the areas where President Nixon and I actually agree. I think the moon landing was an astonishing achievement for the human race, and I fully support future missions to the lunar surface. It's hardly a serious issue in the election, but the space program is universally popular, so this can't hurt. There we go. Let's go to Jersey. Heading to the final stretch, which part of the Democratic platform would you like to emphasize most? Well, while it has garnered a lot of attention, those who actually read it, our platform is pretty moderate. Our domestic policy simply promised an extension of Johnson's Great Society programs, which remain broadly popular. Let's play up how we're not a serious departure from Democratic administrations of the past. While much of the language used in your platform sounds like it was straight from the SDS Charter, it is true that your actual proposed policies are in line with the Democratic Party's mainstream.
Election day ever nearer, Henry Kissinger has appeared in a press conference stating that the Vietnam War is drawing to a close and peace is at hand. How do you respond? While this is yet another deeply cynical move by the Nixon administration, not only has the current peace agreement been offered for years, but this is also premature, as they haven't formally come to a conclusion yet. This is true, but the American people just want the war to be over. We're behind in Maryland again as well. Let's do Washington. Supreme Court was chosen to hear and appear on a case requesting that the White House hand in all the Oval Office tapes after refusing to hand over any citing national security. What do you have to make of this? Well, I have the utmost respect for the Supreme Court, and I hope they reach a proper decision in this case. This is a standard response for political candidates when it comes to the court. It seems their decision to hear this case has really angered Nixon. This is a good turn of events. A pool reporter is set to reference unverified rumors that you had an illegitimate child born in Fort Wayne out of an affair from your youth. The rumor has been circulating amongst those in the Indiana GOP for months now, and your advisors say it likely originated from J. Edgar Hoover's men. How will you respond? Well, which one is it? It is 51. I will categorically deny this rumor. For that matter, denounce the dirty tactics that brought this rumor to life in the first place. It's about time. For once you raise your voice, and it seems to have worked splendidly. In evoking the tricks of Creep and others, you not only shut down the Fort Wayne story, but vindicated yourself in the eyes of the American people as a good man. Oh, it's beautiful. California's probably the tighter bet. 4 days before the election, George Wallace demonstrated evidence from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland that Spiro Agnew had for years received kickbacks from contractors in Maryland, including during his vice presidency. Most observers agree that this will damage Nixon's standing substantially. Excellent. Hopefully this helps close the gap. It's too close of the election for any poll numbers to be conducted, but all signs indicate that this has hurt Nixon badly on all fronts. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay. Yeah, this is good. Election day is tomorrow, so where do you want to spend these last crucial hours of your campaign? Okay, Missouri we got locked down. West Coast, we could use our margins. Oh, we're close to winning Texas. My God, I wish I noticed that. Maybe a couple of visits would have swayed that. Well, let's spend the whole day on the West Coast. California is huge, and we really have a shot at winning it. Throw a big rally this evening in LA after spending most of the day in Washington and Oregon. Cesar Chavez's rallying cry at your final event brings the crowd to its feet, and you are met with overjoyed supporters in Portland. Now it's time to bring America home. Alright, boys and girls, here we go. Whew. Well, these states weren't shocks, though 6 points in Kentucky's not bad. Got all the Nixon and Wall states coming in. We finally got a state of our own, Massachusetts, that's huge. D.C. and Rhode Island as well. You know, the initial margins aren't great, but we just got Minnesota. Okay. We got Ohio and Pennsylvania. Those are some pretty big flips to have. South Dakota as well. Good moral victory to have our home state. We got New York. A fair bit of New England. Vermont was only about a point off. It's not too bad. If we lock down the West Coast, I think we got this. Yeah, we got Missouri. We got Maryland. Half a point to spare. I think we had Hawaii in the West Coast. We did it, boys. Look at that, chat. We got Washington. We did not get Arkansas, though. I wasn't expecting that. Nixon did get it, though. Ooh, and New Jersey was a squeaker. But look at that. 295 to 195 to 48. Texas wasn't that close in reality, it seems. Missouri was good to put the visits in. Probably could have spared the California visits for New Jersey. But hey. Congratulations, you have won the 1972 election. Wow. This is the biggest political upset since Truman beat Dewey. After the chaos that dominated this general election campaign, you've ended up on top, fighting off both Dick Nixon and George Wallace set on revenge. You'll face stiff opposition to your policies from both parties, but clearly the country is at your side. Your victory speech was in front of an ecstatic crowd in your native South Dakota, and everyone could see the tears in your eyes. This is an astounding victory that political analysts will be studying for decades to come, and the climax of a chaotic past for years. On top of this, he received word that Spirag and will soon resign in disgrace, making this victory even sweeter. This is completely shaking up the way the Democratic Party operates, and the next 4 years will be incredibly interesting to watch. Good luck with Vietnam, and here's to you. America came home. Beautiful. Let's take another look at this map. Brings a tear to the eye. Let's take a look at the closest states. New Jersey. Oh, that's 200 votes we were off by. God damn. Arkansas between Nixon and Wallace. Maryland was about 5,000 votes. Missouri about 11,000. And then Washington was about 15,000. The rest of these margins. I'm curious about Vermont. And about 2,100 between us and Nixon and Vermont. What was the closest one for each? Maryland for us. Jersey for Nixon, obviously. Wallace is Tennessee, actually. Interesting. I don't think that counts. Our highest percentage was in D.C. Go figure. Nixon's was in Utah. Okay. And then Wallace had his highest percentage in his home state of Alabama. And here's the historic results. Historic, quote-unquote. We actually did decently better than the base game suggests. Well, that's it for our first episode of McGovern May Govern. Next week, we'll be hopping into another scenario. This one a bit more on a smaller scale. We're going to be hopping into 1980 and see if we can't retain our seat against the Reaganite wave. Until next time, my friends, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you like this video, like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you have any comments or feedback or suggestions for other mods you'd like to see, I have a couple planned out already for this month. But if you have any other ideas for fun themes that sound interesting to you, let me know. Might do something for next month. I might just do normal mods next month as well, without any specific theme. But let me know what you guys think, how you guys are... what you guys think about McGovern and the themed months. And yeah, I thank you all for watching. And I will see you all in the next time. Thank you and goodbye.